Hello, friends. A few minutes late this evening, my apologies, and welcome to those of you who are watching us live and to those who are going to join us a little bit later. We've had a bit of a hiatus the last couple of weeks. I was dealing with visitors and another important project. But anyway, to get straight in today, guys, how institutions become evil and what I can do about it, or what can I do about it? And indeed, is it up to me? Let's start with a general overview. I talk about this a lot now. I talk about the nature of human evil. And in today's presentation, we're going to discuss some examples from my own history that I imagine are going to shock our friends and our viewers a little bit. But are you okay, Danny? I've got Danny here behind me. So yes, let's go. First of all, let's see. I want to get rid of the yeah, that's better, just so I can talk straight. So first of all, the whole notion of institutions. Now, what's the problem? Now, I know that this is going to perhaps shock and surprise a few people to hear what I'm about to say. But if you could bear with me and please trust me on this, you know I'm always talking about this original principle, top right of your screen. That's the representation of it, you know, red, white, and blue, the spirit, mind, and body. It's connected to the light spectrum, to the structure of the atom, to the makeup of human society when it's functioning properly, and so on and so forth. Well, there is the very first commandment, and not to make this overtly religious, of course. Hello, Source Aaron, nice to see you. And friends, I'll only see a few of the comments, by the way, guys, so please don't feel miffed if I don't mention you. And today we've only got about 24 slides, which is less than I usually do. I'm hoping I can get through them pretty quickly. A few salient points to make. But first of all, this whole idea of institutions. Now, there's a very simple premise that everybody will instantaneously get. If we equate the ideas of good and not good, let's say just for the moment, or good and evil, if you like, but good and not good, you say, well, what is it that makes a person do the right thing in any given situation? And it's usually that they have some sort of a moral base and an active conscience, all right? So we've got something here going on that says this doesn't seem right. And then, of course, the impulse is to say, well, I shouldn't do it, okay? Now, in some cases, people don't have the luxury of being able to make that decision for themselves because they're employed by someone else, whether it be an individual or an agency or an institution, and they are required basically to go along, to be obedient, to do what they're told, and in return, the contract says they'll get paid a weekly wage. And of course, this can go on for a person's whole career. The problem being, if that institution, organization, agency, or individual who is your boss is not a moral person, well, you're stuck, aren't you? All right. So the first principle to understand about how institutions become evil is, first of all, because institutions do not have consciences. Individual people do. And if you're fortunate enough to be in a small community or organization or workforce where there is a very clear understanding of what the ethics and morals are, and if you are all of the same sort of mind and you all want to respect those ethics and morals, then you're very fortunate indeed. The problem is that once any agency or institution starts to grow to any sort of size, it's obliged to integrate with other social institutions, the great majority of which are intrinsically evil, believe it or not. And now you might say, oh, that's a terrible thing to say, Stephen. There's lots of good people doing good jobs and there's lots of good businesses trying to just do this, that, and the other. Yes, I know, I understand all this. We won't have time to go into it all today. I do put up these slides. I do put up various videos explaining as best I can that there's the model of human society actually traces all the way back to Cain, the murderer, the first murderer. He was the one who set up the first city, according to scripture, Okay, and I know there's certain things you can take as factual, and some you have to, take with a pinch of salt and so on. But it all makes sense that the first truly satanically inspired individual got the notions, the ideas for what we call today civilization, or even certainly cities and the way we organize ourselves. And interestingly, isn't it, when you actually realize and work out that it's a violation of the first commandment, because we were all supposed to be, the original principle tells us that we were all supposed to be our own authority. Now, I don't mean this in a selfish, mean, nasty, or wicked way, of course. I mean that we would each be individually connected to Source, or what you may call it God, the divine, Allah, and all this sort of stuff. But we would be we'd be directly connected to Source, spirit, mind, body, okay, concept, plan, action, deity, feminine, masculine, in that order, okay? And we would be connected to Source. And the idea of having another authority step in and take the place of God, I just use the word God, is a violation of the first commandment. It's very clear, really, when you think about it. I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt not have strange gods before me. And if you talk to any cleric or any pastor or minister worth their salt, hopefully they'll say to you, yeah, we're all of us are all the time choosing false gods. Now, part of the problem is we don't really truly know the original Source, the true God. And if we did, I think we'd value it a great deal more. But the problem we have is we're born into this network of interlocking systems. And we've got one slide on that later on in the presentation that we'll come back to. This network of interlocking systems that by and large are in it for profit, whether it be governments or corporations or businesses or big pharma or big tobacco, or even, believe it or not, guys, big charities, big churches. Many of them have adopted the diabolical model of operation simply because they have to. They can only grow to a certain size and keep a moral ethos before they have to start trading, if you like, with the big boys. And the big boys are, and even the science tells us, the highest number of sociopaths and psychopaths are to be found in the corridors of power of the large international multinational corporations. Second to that, in law offices, judges, lawyers, solicitors, barristers, and so on. Yeah, you might see Danny's head keep popping up over there. Maybe I'll adjust just a little bit to see. All right, okay, so we don't want a distraction. So good to see a few people coming on board. Thank you, guys. And again, for those who've just joined us, I did apologize at the beginning for the short hiatus. A couple of weeks we didn't appear. Truly sorry about that. It's not my intention to do it. This is a priority for me. Just sometimes things come up that have to be dealt with. But it is Valentine's Day weekend, which is part of the reason that I'm talking about this subject, as you'll see. So let's see what we've got now. And the slides all come as a little bit of a surprise to me. Oh, yes. First of all, as I said a moment ago, before we blow this one up, make it larger for you. These are just comments on the tragic shooting of Alex Pretty, the man in Minneapolis, the second civilian to be shot. Now, I know this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I just want to make one important point. Okay. I think the last main video I did, it was warning about lies and liars. If somebody tells, if you know someone is a liar, why would you trust them? I mean, it's common sense, guys. If you know someone's a pickpocket, are you going to sit next to them on the train? No. If you know someone is a danger to kids, are you going to ask them to babysit? No, of course you're not. The big problem we have, we're being forced into situations where we're being forced to sort of not trust liars, but we're being forced to obey them. We're being forced to be governed. We're sort of, we're trapped in this horrible, horrible system. And I mean, if you think again what Jesus said, the worst insult he could give anyone was to tell them, you are like your father, the devil. He was a liar from the beginning, and he always will be a liar. So the lie is the great giveaway. So then if you say, right, so if the lie is the marker of, let's call it diabolical presence, yeah, if it's the lie, then ask yourself how many of our politicians are literally practiced career liars, yeah? And why is it that that particular occupation attracts so many of them, for example? Then if you look in the legal profession, again, where the highest numbers of sociopaths and psychopaths are, and the CEOs of international corporations, maybe some of them don't have to lie, but because they're in it for profit, you can't profit without taking advantage of somebody else in some manner. Okay, it's almost impossible. Profit, that is. I'm not talking about fair exchange. You know, I'll come and wash your car for you, and in return you'll give me a tenner or something like that. It's a fair exchange for my time, maybe. I'm talking about people who are in the business of making a profit. You cannot profit without exploiting somebody else. And the exploitation is not on the love end of the spectrum, is it? Okay, it's on the sociopathic end, not the empathetic end. Okay, so lies and profiteering and big corporations who require you to surrender your conscience, they're all sort of in the same package. All right, they're all in the same package. And the one thing we learned during the COVID scandemic, plandemic, call it what you like, the largest criminal hoax ever in human history, without a doubt, is that most of the so-called authorities are not to be trusted, because most of them are liars, and they will lie for profit, or they will lie just to keep in with the boss, or with the medical council, or with the mainstream media, or even just with their peers. And we've got to really wake up and recognize this. And it all revolves back to this notion that, well, if we didn't have institutions, what else would we have? And then there's a bit of a leap of thinking that happens there. Good to see you, Paul, there. I'll see if I get a moment. I can't sort of read. I'm not a multitasker, really, guys, much as people think otherwise. I can't really read the comments and think about them and still stay on track here, because I'm not reading from a script, guys. So, but I will get to the comments after if I don't mention them while we're talking here today. Yes, it comes back. This is where there's a leap of thinking here that's required, guys. So you say, well, hold on a minute. All we've known in human history from the day that records began is that there are kings and emperors and bosses, and and then there's slaves and laborers and serfs, and it's all this top-down authoritarian stuff where someone is an authority figure who is controlling, dictating, and oppressing others. And it's because it's all that we know that we seem to think, well, it's always got to be like that. And what I'm saying to you now today is, no, it's not. And the key is in the first commandment. I am your authority figure. You should have no other authority figures before me. Now, it's one thing going to someone who's wiser than you are, or more experienced in some particular field, or that sort of thing, But that other person, that second person, should not be using their experience or their wisdom or their knowledge, their specialized knowledge, to dominate you and to keep you stupid, And if you think about it, that's basically how the world is working at the moment. We're all waking up to the fact that most of the authorities are not to be trusted. They are liars. They make a profit from it. That's the first principle. And the second principle is that's how they control us. Okay? They keep us ignorant because we don't have the knowledge. We don't know sometimes when we're being lied to. So what I'm really positing is, and I know it's a bit of a leap of the imagination, but that we are all supposed to have an intrinsic connection with the divine, and a personal, unique connection with the divine. And if we had that, we'd spot the lawyers, I was going to say, yes, the liars and the lawyers, we'd spot them far quicker than we are doing as we are today, because we're being kept in relative ignorance. Now, the rise of the internet, of course, has been a great boon when it's being used correctly. And it's partly what's threatening the status quo at the moment. The mainstream media, the governments, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, go on. The people we call the cabal, meaning this group of what they call elites, but they're parasites, actually, guys. They're predators and parasites, right? Pernicious predators and parasites. That's about as many P's as I can say in one go. And the plan... And it involves everything from this gender dysphoria. I was watching a program earlier with Danny, and the amount of the concepts that are being presented as normal every day now in programs, even like the old-fashioned Coronation Street and things like that. And there are things being presented to make us sort of get used to the idea, oh, well, this is just normal, isn't it? Now, the problem that most of us don't realize is we are being, like on a chessboard, if you like, we're being slid down the sociopathic scale towards hell. It's as simple as that, guys. It's partly to do mentally, it's partly to do with the environment that we're all living in, the 15-minute smart cities they're thinking of making, and things like that. We've got to wake up. We've got to understand what this is all about. And as I get older, and I'm increasingly aware that we all have limited time, I know that one of the things I have to do is publish the information I have about this original principle. So at least it's there. Should anything, I would hope it doesn't, should anything happen to me. But I do continue to keep fighting the bad guys. And that means that we're constantly in some sort of, well, you know, there's certainly a threat of danger. I'm going to cover some of that in a moment. Okay, I need to bump on here, guys. Keep it going. So, yes, so this, very simply, I'm just going to play a little video clip in a second. This quote, these quotes here are from some news outlets, okay, mainstream news outlets that I'm saying to you in so many words shouldn't be trusted. You can't trust them, you know. But what they were saying was that the Trump administration was lying. Now, do you remember I said just a minute ago, okay, now most people who are following these weekly talks will know that by and large, I could be described as a, quote, Trump supporter, although there is a caveat to that. I've recognized from the very beginning that what made Trump a bit different was that he didn't ascend through the ranks of the political system. All right. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever your opinions are, I see him less as a figure of the establishment who is there to defend and protect and advance the often nefarious ambitions and intentions of the establishment. I see him more as an establishment breaker, you know, a system wrecker, rather than an enforcer, which is actually what we need. Because if you think about it logically, even if you're God himself, right? And there's enough evidence in history now to show us that there are, when I say limitations, there are things that can and cannot be done. If he's going to achieve things through human agency, he's got to work, or she, yeah, don't worry. He or she has got to work through the institutions and agencies that we have already. Now, personally, I think that requires a breakdown of this centralized power and a move back towards communities and interpersonal relationships where we genuinely show love for each other. You know, not talking about kissy love here, you know, of course. I'm talking about genuine care and concern for each other and wanting the best for each other, knowing and understanding that it is our birthright to be children of light. Or if you want to put it another way, to be divine beings. Now, it might seem a bit audacious, guys, but that was the original plan. That's what the original principle is all about. Now, the fact of the matter is that most of us alive today are so far short of even the physical model of the original principle, let alone the psychological, mental model or the spiritual model of the original principle, that we may not see this in our lifetimes. But the more of us that wake up, the sooner that humanity is going to cross that threshold of awareness and wake up one morning and go, what on earth, or maybe more to the point, what on hell, what in the name of hell have we been doing all these centuries, allowing these corrupted authorities to dominate us and force us to live in at various levels. You can call it fallen nature, you can call it sin, you can call it dysfunction, you can call it evil, you know. But at various levels, we're all being trapped in this evil world because most of us, number one, aren't aware fully of what the difference between good and evil is, what evil actually is. It's an attack on good. It doesn't belong here, guys. And secondly, we don't recognize it when we see it manifested in individuals and in institutions and in the environment around us. All right, maybe we'll get to that today here, right? Okay, so I was just pointing out that, so I'm still hoping, even as this tragedy happened, this Alex Pretty man was shot, Trump he's heading up an institution, you know, the United States of America. He's heading up that institution, and that institution has grown up over a long period of time. And no doubt, as we've seen in these sort of political and court battles between the Democrats and the Republicans in America, we've seen the politicization of the judiciary. So almost know that, well, if Trump is going to be tried in a Democratic, in a New York court, they're going to find him guilty one way or the other, and they'll trick and scheme and whatever to do it. Whereas if it goes to the Supreme Court, where there's a majority of Republican appointed judges, it's likely to swing the other way, which makes a nonsense of the whole concept of justice, of course. But the point I'm trying to make here is not to defend this incident, which could have been there's any number of narratives here we could use to explain how this poor man got shot. All right. The only point I'm trying to make is, number one, the mainstream media is not to be trusted. And I think I've got a second one here. Yeah, look, CNN host exposes administration's lies. So they're really attacking Trump's administration because all of these news outlets are either sponsored by or are leaning towards what they call the left, the Democrats in America at the moment. Now, I'm just going to play a very short clip, guys. This is a woman called Elizabeth Warren. You'll probably recognize her face. She's a senator, I believe, a Democrat. She's quite the noise bag, is the way I would describe her. I have to find it here, guys, as we look. Where's it gone? Have I somehow not managed to upload this? No. Oh, here it is, of course. Yeah. Now, it's very short. She's talking about this Alex Pretty guy. You would think she was describing a pure angel from heaven itself, the way she describes. It's backed up by a video. This is not a video of the incident that happened. This incident happened about a week before the man had another confrontation with the ICE agents. But this is a prior confrontation with ICE agents. If you're watching carefully, I don't want to waste too much time freezing it, but you'll see the handle of his gun when he's being roughed up by one of the ICE agents. You see the black handle of his gun sticking out of the center of his jumper. It's only second. You can freeze it for yourself and see. But anyway, this is a woman who dislikes Trump intensely. She herself has been involved in a number of scandals. Clearly a thoroughly dishonest person. Let's just hear what she has to say.
Was at the core of who he was. He was incapable of causing harm. Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm as a steady light within him. Even at the very end, that light was there. I recognized his familiar stillness and signature calm composure.
Signature, calm, composure. Yeah, that's that. Anyway, I've made my point. I've got to remove that. 1 second, guys. So I hope I made the point there. In other words, the politicians, our so-called authorities, I know it's in another country, but they will jump on any opportunity. They won't hesitate to lie, to gain political capital in one way or another. Why? Because they're in it, because they know the system. The higher up the system they are, the more they can gain for themselves at other people's expense. It's sort of that simple, guys. Don't trust them. Right, let's go back to our videos. So the next, yes, I just wanted to make a point here, guys. I put up a short video that I'd seen. People, thank you for sending me stuff, by the way. Those of you that do send me stuff regularly, sometimes I don't have time to thank you. But when I see something that catches my eye, I usually put it aside to use for the following week. Anyway, I posted something up on Facebook. To tell the truth, I can't even remember it. I think it was something to do with the jabs and stuff like that. And I had written, the unvarnished truth is often unpalatable, but who are we really without it? In other words, we must see the truth. We must recognize the truth. We must advance the interests of the truth. We must be brave enough to stand up and declare it. And in their great and no doubt system-serving insight, Meta removed it. As you can see, this page isn't available. I clicked on the link, went to see it. So I just put up a post saying, it wasn't deleted or removed by me, by the way. Telling the truth, it seems, hasn't yet caught on as a standard operating procedure at Meta, otherwise known as Facebook. And who cares if I start getting it, if I get a couple of strokes or strikes or whatever they call it for pointing this out. Next is these people, Fact Check Hub. Now, who are these? Well, these are amongst the policemen on TikTok, if you like. Now, I'm using TikTok to AI generates short clips from my videos. So I just fire them over on TikTok. I don't edit them or anything like that. You know, maybe I might change the title or something. But almost always anything I put up there is factually true, or at least it's supported by evidence sufficient for it not to be challenged. So I had a quick look. Who's this Fact Check Hub? And what do you find out? Well, first of all, they're here encouraging people to report anyone. You see here, use reporting tools, you know. If you encounter content that appears to violate TikTok's policies, such as misinformation, hate speech, or manipulated videos, report it immediately using the platform's built-in reporting features. This helps maintain a safe community. And then I checked out who is Fact Check Hub. They are funded by the Annenberg Foundation, which is known to fund many left-of-center political groups and causes, even though on their website, they very vehemently declare, we don't have any political sponsorship, we blah, blah, blah. It's lies, guys. Lies are their currency. All of these institutions, the default, for me anyway, guys, and I know it's a depressing thing to have to say to people, but because of, you know, the COVID phenomenon and everything that went along with it, and the ongoing plans now for 2030 and so on and so forth, I see I've frozen here, guys. Oh no, it's all right, we're back. Because of that, we're now in a place where people are more willing to listen to this than they would have been beforehand. My default take, when any authority figure or any authority system says something, my first reaction is to question it. Second is to find out what their associations and affiliations are. And thirdly, what their agenda might be other than the truth. Sometimes you're pleasantly surprised and you find that actually this appears to be true or real or whatever, right? But that should be the default reaction. We have to be sort of, I was going to say heavenly cynics, or we have to be cynical. We have to be cautious, but not, when by cynical, maybe cynical is too strong a word, but certainly we have to be cautious. We have to assume that if someone is part of the system, and the higher up the tiers they are in that system, the less they should be automatically trusted. I remember saying once before that if you meet a guard is an Irish policeman, if you meet a middle-aged guard who is still either a sergeant or a guard, which are the two lower ranks, there's only two reasons for that. He is either stupid or honest. All right, because, and again, most people don't realize this, after inspector, all of the senior ranks in the Gardaí are political appointees. Now you know why we've got so many problems there, yeah? So, now, oh yes, and again, so here we go. So in TikTok, I've been very busy. Every time I go in there and I pop in a few videos, I get all these violation warnings, you know? And you'll see what I've said back to them, because I'm fed up with this, you know, because it wastes so much of my time trying to correct things and everything, you know. So proof that the US election was illegal. All right, very short, guys. I'm just going to play it. All right, here we go.
Wireless chip manufactured in Taiwan was discovered embedded into the motherboard. The voting machine tapes clearly indicate modem engagement and transmission of election data. Some of the anomalies that we noticed in the 2020 general elections, that 5 key states all stopped counting at a certain time in these key battleground states. These were all where the software, Dominion machines, ESNS machines were used, the Smartmatic, the GEMS software. So when the vote stopped counting, and this has been noted in other countries as well, President Trump was significantly ahead. When reporting and counting resumed, there was a massive spike occurred that favored Joe Biden.
Right. So again, guys, let me remove this. How do I do it? Here we go. Pull it out. So again, guys, that was the clip that was up on TikTok. If we just go back to this fellow, we see what does it say here at the bottom? Oh yes, the reason for it said they wouldn't restore it. I said, but it's a true thing, and I gave them the reasons why it was a true clip and it made sense. And this is how Biden got elected and all the rest of it. And he says Violation reasons, civic and election integrity. Elections are important moments of community conversation and promote the values of an open society, which is precisely why we need to know if they're being violated. We do not allow misinformation about civic and electoral processes, regardless of intent. This includes misinformation about how to vote, registering to vote, eligibility requirements of candidates, the processes, blah, 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 blah. I didn't violate their policies. What I did was put up information precisely to support that ethos. And some, person and some anonymous person violated. Anyway, on to the next one. There's 2 or 3 of these guys. Again, I'm just trying to make the point again that lies are often the currency, and I know this isn't going to make me any friends over there, but I don't care. So I got fed up basically of all of these censorships. So they said to me again, another video you posted has been removed for violating community guidelines, blah, blah, blah. Bottom right, they said, your account has multiple policy violations. Another violation could result in a ban from TikTok. Oh, dear me. Oh, I'm terrified. I'm only using it because it links in with the StreamYard that I'm doing here, So it says you can also view an appeal. I did appeal. I've kept appealing. And when I appeal, I eventually said this to them. I am thoroughly fed up with this ridiculous, mindless censorship. Stop it, please, or I will find another outlet for these educational materials. Each such blocked clip will be further highlighted, which I've just done a minute ago. What's the next one? There's another one then. So this one was, they blocked this one because I posted about the UK woman that was arrested after calling her attacker a faggot. She got arrested for a hate crime. Was it true or was it not? Let's have a look. There they are, guys. That's just 3 out of a whole list. If you put it in, woman calls a man a faggot, just have a look on the internet. It's true. So why are they taking it down? Why are they blocking it? It's because there's another agenda. And sadly, we're all trapped. We're obliged to use some of these systems, Now, again, there's good platforms like Rumble, for example. I'm backing everything up over there, these videos, so that if they do get taken down elsewhere, I've still got them there. And if I have to, I'll create another website if I have to, and to put the materials up, because this is the mission, the education mission, okay? All right, so there we are, just proved anyway there. Yeah, it's true. It was an absolutely true story. So why did you take it down? Here's another one. Oh, and in this case, I had advised the listeners that the Venezuelan source code was on sale to election fraudsters. So that tied into the thing you saw before. Basically, the Venezuela, that's to do with Maduro being seized by Trump and the US forces and things like that. They blocked it, and I appealed, and I said, but it's patently true what I've told you. Why? So at least I got one of them restored. But it's also the wasted time. And I also don't like engaging with a platform like TikTok, for example. I don't know all that much about them. But again, these anonymous entities that presume authority over me, no. I've spent at least most of my adult lifetime defending people's rights, standing up for the truth. It sort of annoys me. I feel like saying to them, who do you think you are? You don't know me. You don't know all the work I've done. And yet you're blocking this content, which is educational, helping other people. Why are you blocking it? And it's either a case of, a mindless numpty just doing as they're told, or a word pops up, election. Oh, election, ban. And then you have to appeal, and then they examine it, and it's all, So anyway, that's my stance. As a matter of fact, I have to go and check and make sure they haven't already banned me already. But if they have, I will wear it as a badge of pride. A badge of pride. I'm sorry, real pride. That is not the the other stuff. Okay, because as another truism, I think we'll get these printed on a T-shirt. You can't have enough bad enemies. All right, and you can't have enough good friends. Obviously, yeah. All right. So, okay. Just a small commentary. Yeah, we're doing okay, guys. I'm going to bump ahead with some pretty sort of tasty stuff in a few minutes. Goes back a few years, but I think some of you even will be shocked and surprised at it. I just let this in here. I meant to talk about this a couple of weeks ago. In Ireland, this is the president of the Irish High Court, a fellow called Bainbridge or Banbridge or something. Anyway, David Barnville. Yeah, Barnville. I haven't had personal dealings with him, And I would be genuinely very, very pleasantly surprised, even astonished, if he turns out to be an honourable person, as opposed to almost all of the other Irish judges I've had to deal with, almost all of them. There's a couple of rare exceptions. But by and large, they're not appointed to the bench because they're good people. They're appointed to the bench because they will protect and defend the system, and they will do and use any nefarious, deceptive, disruptive tactics, that they need to in order to protect themselves and their colleagues and the gravy train that they're all on. Okay, so they're trying now to bring in new rules. This is how they do it. They put a couple of articles in the newspaper. Oh dear, disruptive behaviour. Now, a lot of this will have to do with the Enoch Burke case, for example, and other lay litigants who are finally realising that they're being shafted every time they walk into one of these courts, because it is, as I say in my book, criminality in the Irish courts and the absence of the rule of law. The Irish legal system is the largest publicly funded criminal organisation in Ireland. And the problem we have is we keep going back to them. Now, I've made one attempt to set up, well, myself and some colleagues, the People's Tribunal of Ireland. By all means, go and look on the website, guys. Write out the full name, the People's Tribunal of Ireland. Go and have a look at it. It is an alternative to using the courts, guys. Now, we don't have enforcement. We don't have police. We don't have prisons. And we can't really risk having posses going to lift people off the streets, because the way the rules are at the moment, the laws that suit the system, you have to transfer them into the jurisdiction of the current police. And in that case, it's basically a waste of time. But at least you can get paper results that you can take with you when you're going into the Irish courts. You preempt all of the shenanigans and all of the lies and all of the trying to fleece their clients and their customers by having an authority from the People's Tribunal, which is lawful, by the way, that they cannot argue with, because we use their laws to provide the answer to the questions that will be raised in court. And you can basically walk in and say, happy days, judge, happy days, DPP, barristers, solicitors. You can all go off and play golf or whatever it is you do on all of the half days that you have that we're paying for, because this has already been decided by the People's Tribunal. Argue about that document. Give me a call if you want to spend a day arguing about it. Go ahead and let me know tomorrow what your objections might be, because there shouldn't be any. And you have then, your result of your case before you even go in to start it. Okay. Best, obviously, for people who are fighting property, mortgage frauds and all that sort of stuff. But also, for most people who are unaware of the fact that, for instance, 700 new laws are being brought in every year. Did you know that, on average? Yeah. Thank Barrister Tracy O'Mahony for that one. Thanks, Tracy. But there are some honest ones out there, but you have to look hard. I'm very sorry to say. So, right, let's bump on then. Let's see what's next. Okay, here we go. So, got a few minutes left to do this. This is great. Okay, now we're going to go back, guys, believe it or not, 14 years. Don't run away if you think this is old history. Valentine's Day. Okay, now let's just read out this little title here. When people think of Ireland, it is usually of a lush green land with curious sheep and Guinness. But beyond the tourist idol lies a burgeoning nepotism, where state corruption and stonewalling ensures the systemic silence of all. Now, as you can see, this is it's translated from German. Okay, this was an article called "The Walls of Stone." Right, it was written by a German journalist who came out to interview me. And it tells the story. I had it here in front of me, but there's the link, guys. If you put that in on online, it's only 12 pages, okay? And this is the beginning of it here. This is the first page on the left. I'll bring it up a little bit here for you. Here it is, sorry. So you ignore the right-hand side just for a minute, but this is where I'm out of exasperation with the system over the years. Now, bear in mind, this is going way back to my dealings with the establishment, the Irish establishment. My difficult dealings with them started in about 2009 with a false allegation. I was a soccer referee at the time, and a false allegation that I'd entered the kids' changing rooms when they were undressing, uninvited and all that. False allegation. And it was because the manager of the football team, the brother of this creature you can see here on the right, was, he was just soccer mad, lunatic, couldn't, cursing and swearing at the kids and everything. And I told him to calm down. And the consequence was he made a false allegation against me, as it seems is the knee-jerk reaction, isn't it? False sexual allegations. And there was a court battle ensued. People were sent to break my legs. One of them got murdered. Valentine's Day 2010. If you want to know more about it, guys, read that article because it covers that, this whole event, and it'll help you understand the origins of the Integrity Ireland movement. But I'm also adding now a little bit of justice of my own here, because this character, his name is Paul Collins, or at least that was his name. That was his birth name at the time, because who knows what's happened to him. All of a sudden, he disappeared into the blue. He appears to be, he's true, like I said here, see what evil personified looked like. If you go to checkpoint.ie, it's just a single page entry page of like website into some of the other things that I did over the years. I'm not active in them all anymore. But if you go down to this chain, you see there's a chain at the bottom of the page linking those two boxes, you know, the envelopes and the green box at the bottom. If you click on that link, all right, guys, just click on that link and it opens up pages of evidence. If you click on his picture in the pages of evidence, it shows you even more, all right? This is a thoroughly sinister and evil person. Now, let's hope and pray to God that he's changed his ways. If he has, I never got the apology, Paul, so maybe you'd like to come back. But this guy was embedded with international drug dealing gangs. And he took it upon himself when I ended up taking a court case against his brother, George, out in Achill, for defamation, which eventually was settled in my favor. But it took about 2.5 years. He took it upon himself, this evil, wicked brother of his, younger brother, to deal with me. And that included hiring a couple of paramilitaries from Dundalk to come and break my legs. These were guys who were involved in enforcement with drug gangs and with the IRA. Okay, so certain type of character. I'm not going to name them here because they still have family. One of them was shot dead less than a month later, guys, in highly suspicious circumstances. I could keep you busy and entertained for probably hours explaining, and maybe I'll do it one day. Certainly I've got all this documented. In the unlikely, and I would hope in the event anything untoward were to happen to me, it's already been put on video record and it would be automatically released. Okay, but this involves politicians at the highest level. These two guys were second cousins, for example, to Enda Kenny. All right. It involves the Garda Síochána right to the very top, Martin Callanan and O'Sullivan and all the rest of it at the top at the time. They all knew what was going on. These guys were sent out to break my legs because I was the referee, and they went to the wrong house and attacked the wrong guy. All right. He himself told me. We also had somebody who was in jail with these characters, the surviving brother, because they were caught. But they were caught and released immediately. It's a horrendous story, guys. But when I say things like the biggest taxpayer-sponsored criminal organization in Ireland, I'm not joking. I'm absolutely not joking. It involves almost all of the top judges, almost all of our senior politicians, all the senior civil servants, top guards, lawyers, DPPs, and all the rest of it. They're involved in reckless, wholesale criminal wrongdoing. And someone like me stumbles upon it, and inadvertently it becomes my mission to challenge and expose this, which is what the Integrity Ireland operation came to be. All right. But here again, I'm just showing you a couple of slides here. Okay. So, for example, okay, so that here at the top, that's Paul Collins, left and right. Okay. Now, if anybody knows where he is these days, I'd love to hear. I'd love to know. All right. Given this was about 14 years ago, we may have had one sighting of him recently, and he hasn't changed an awful lot. He's about 5'8", 5'9", as you can see, sort of stocky build. But when I say a thoroughly evil and wicked person, I went to where he used to live in the UK, and I got testimonies from neighbors and everything. He was involved in international drug dealing. It appears that he snitched on the international gang that he was part of. Most of them are now serving long sentences. There was an operation in the UK called Operation Orpington, okay, 2007, in the Old Bailey, and all the people were acquitted because the evidence of the supergrass wasn't considered safe. A prison governor wrote about this guy, Paul Collins, in a book that he published and describes him as one of the worst and most evil people he ever met. Yeah, that's his brother George on the left. Of course, that was like 14, 15 years ago. He pretended that he'd emigrated to Canada to escape me coming after him. He still owes me money. I think 25,000 I was awarded in another defamation case for another shocking article that went up online, authored by him and his brother. You know, Enda Kenny there, ex-Prime Minister of Ireland, is their second cousin. He knew all about this, did nothing, right? Bottom left, a guy called Philip McNulty, Fine Gael, yeah, and see the same political circles and everything, Fine Gael operative and secretary of the club, composed numerous documents, lies. Luckily, there was one honest man in the Achill Rovers committee who stood up in court and said, this isn't true, Judge, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, whatever. And I had a coach that backed me up. We won the case anyway. But bottom right there is a fellow called John Cafferty. Hi, John. Hope you're doing well. Runs a pub out in Achill. It's time you guys face some justice. It's as simple as that. And if this is all we've got, if all we've got is public exposure because the system protects its own. I just point out there, you see what I've got here, guys, what I've got up on the page. That's a post office receipt for a registered letter. And you'd say, oh, yeah, so what? Well, you can see clearly it's been signed by John Cafferty, right? Who's John Cafferty? That's him bottom right there. He's an ex-Garda sergeant and a commissioner for oaths. Now, being a commissioner for oaths is a very trusted position. It's the sort of person you can go to and have all sorts of documents authorized and signed and affirmed and, you know, and things like that. It's quite a high recognition in Irish society, you know, a trusted member of the community. Well, the only interesting thing here is that particular letter, and I brought this into a judge and they completely ignored it. This letter was a notice, a court hearing notice in a case where I was the applicant. They addressed it back to this John Cafferty guy so that they could walk into the court and show that the letter had been posted ostensibly to me, but it wasn't posted to me. It was posted to him. And then I went, and they didn't expect me to do this. I went and got the signature of the person who signed for the document that I never heard about because the case went ahead in my absence. They ruled against me. And then I had to go in and try and appeal to get the system to come back. And the judge at the time, I think it's the judge now, what's his name? He's now in charge of what the newly renamed GSOC, you know, McCabe, isn't it? Yeah, McCabe. Just not interested. I said, but it's black and white evidence of fraud on the court. It's just, you know, and they just cover up for their buddies and their colleagues. I mean, that wasn't the worst of it by a long shot. Then there's this character. Now, I do hope you're watching Rosalind Miriam Franklin. All right, that's her on the left in about 2007, I think. All right. Charming woman. I'm only going to spend a few minutes talking about her because this is part of how we get justice, guys. All right. She was a rogue publisher, is the way to describe it. She was ripping people off for thousands of euros for alleged publishing packages that not only she didn't deliver, but she couldn't deliver. She came across me basically and tried the same with me on a lesser scale. And I was so incensed at the way that she responded and screaming and swearing and threatening. She would make up letters and put false letterheads on them, pretending to be from solicitors and all this sort of stuff to try and intimidate people, you know? So myself, I ended up basically organizing about 120 authors who had been defrauded by her. And we did what they call a class action lawsuit in the UK. Now, I can't remember it exactly. I think there was about 17 in the end because she wrote to everybody that was going to go after her. And a lot of them fell for the threats. She was very, very vicious. And she had about, 40 plus different personalities online, all pushing her publishing operation and saying how wonderful she was and fantastic. Then we found out she was also masquerading as a prophetess at the same time as ripping all these people off for, thousands and thousands of pounds, right? And So she was posing then as an end times prophetess and waiting and then giving predictions about things that had just happened, and then claiming she had a huge following in the United States. She took a lot of people to the cleaners over there, but we found this out and we exposed her. And then eventually you took her to court, and I was the last one standing basically. And I won my case against her in the English courts, and she was ordered to pay me back £80. I then paid the bailiffs £100 to go and get my £80, just so that I could have the notice and put it in a frame and on the wall. This was after about 3 years of battles in the British courts and everything at the time, guys. Okay, and it overlapped these problems starting here in Ireland. Okay, as you'll see in a minute. Because as you can see now, she has changed her name, right? That's her passport. I'm not going to say right now how I got a hold of it, but somebody that she crossed found out. They thought I was some sort of monster that was hunting her down or something. It was quite funny. But anyway, they sent me this information. She went off, I think, to Korea, had plastic surgery done, didn't pay for it. She's always on scams, and always on, claiming to slip up on the butter in the supermarket and all that sort of stuff, apparently, all the time. She's now masquerading as a photographer in Bristol, guys, all right, in the UK. I'm just putting it out there, guys. This is what happens when you, and you might say, well, you're being a bit harsh on this woman, aren't you, Stephen? Say, no, I'm not. And I'll tell you why, guys. And I'll just pull this up here now. I'll tell you why. Because not only was she involved with the Collinses in finding those two men to come out and break my legs, which ended up resulting in having one of them, nothing to do with me, of course, but one of them was murdered in mysterious circumstances less than a week later in Dundalk. Let's just put it this way: the hand of the state is all over it. I believe that they were going to turn the tables on the system, because they had been given the clear, the all clear to come and get me on Valentine's night or Sunday night on Achill. No police on duty anywhere. What a coincidence! Yeah, on a holiday night. Yeah, but and as it turned out, then we later found out that I believe I can't remember the figure now, but she was involved in hiring those two guys to come and get us in Achill in 2010. Further to that, when I printed my book, Criminality in the Irish Courts and the Absence of the Rule of Law, okay, around that time is when someone that she had crossed contacted me, told me, sent her new name, her new identity and everything, and told me that she had paid a hitman 10,000 English pounds to have her own husband killed. Now, this is hot stuff, guys. I'm saying this in public. I can prove every word of it. I even know who the hitman was. Believe it or not, my friends, all of this was reported to the British authorities, the British police. Priti Patel, if you remember, she was the head of the Home Office at the time. I went through all of things, and it's exactly the same over there, guys. As soon as I mentioned that this case was linked to these attacks in Achill in 2010 and the subsequent murder of one of the perpetrators, and that the guards were heavily implicated in it, the Irish police, all of a sudden the whole of the English system shut down. Now, I'm bringing out another report very shortly that makes reference to this. And yeah, it has to be done, guys. We have to tell the truth. We have to have courage. I know there are risks. My God, do I know there are risks. And there's more. If I had more time, I could tell you more. Maybe we'll do a full expose on all this one day. But now you know. So those of you in Bristol who are having any sort of an association with this photographer called Sophie Merlot, where is she? I want to put it back up. I don't know why it's... Oh, yeah, sorry, it's the wrong one. Here it is. All right. There she is in her various guises. It's hard to tell. But that's a close example of what she looks like now, bottom right, although that's a couple of years old as well, okay? But there's evidence, her passport, change of name, surgery, cosmetic surgery, and apparently the man who reported this to me told me she did this because when she saw how basically we took on the Collinses and the Irish establishment, she decided that she had to literally change her appearance and change her identity for fear of being being discovered by me, because she did set up 3 or 4 different businesses. We found them. We reported her to the authorities in England. They were shut down. Okay. And no doubt she lost quite a lot of money. Oh, by the way, did the bailiffs, before you ask the question, did the English bailiffs get my £80 for me? No, they didn't. I've got a notice from them, funny enough, not stamped or signed, but a notice from the bailiffs in Cornwall, I think it was Truro, somewhere in Bodmin, Cornwall, saying, we're very sorry. We don't know how to justify this, but we're giving up. We've been to the property 3 or 4 times. We have never had to have dealings with somebody like this. Now, again, I don't know exactly what went on. I think I called them up and I got a couple of reports, but apparently there was just, they were overwhelmed by her nastiness, her wickedness, her deviousness, and like I said, she paid someone $10,000 to have her husband killed. Then when the guy who didn't take it all that seriously kept the money, she tried to hire another guy. She offered him half the money back if he could recover the 10 grand. And I know who that person is. Don't worry, I'm not going to say anything. I told the English police, they didn't want to know. I said, why aren't you asking me for the identity of this alleged hitman? Everything to shut me down, to stop the investigation. There were 3 or 4 Bristol and Somerset police, Plymouth, sort of Cornwall Constabulary, the Met Police, and of course the Home Office, magistrates, everything. It's astonishing. But I think we'll do a full expose on it one day, because at least that way there's some sort of accountability, because we're not going to get it in the English or the Irish courts, guys, not while the system controls it. So almost finished here, guys. There's the proof. If in case any of you want to follow through with this, find out who she is, tell her this Manning guy has got her name all over the internet. I considered going to visit her in person, and then thought better of it, just because the British police weren't any help at all. They literally just, no, we don't want to hear, we don't want to hear. It was the system protecting the system. They're not interested if some woman wants to kill her husband, not if it means some of their buddies in the police in Ireland are going to get in trouble, or not if it's going to open up these old cases that the Irish system and people like Enda Kenny and Martin Callanan, the Garda Commissioner, and the DPP, Claire Loftus at the time, have all quashed and shut down. They're just sort of blessing themselves with relief. Well, Manning stopped coming after us directly, at least now, because the last time they came after me, they put me in jail. The intention was to take Danny, and we can't have that, guys. So let's just say we've taken precautions, all right? And one of them is this library now, video library, that will be, the minute anything happens, it's out, okay? So it looks like we're running out of time, guys. So I did have a few more slides. I was going to, let's see if I can be really quick. Oh, yes, for what it's worth, guys, there's the Home Office letter from this guy, Michael Pryor. At least I think that's him, that's the right name, and, we've got confidence in the system, and sorry that you're not happy with the way we handled your complaint. I reported a potential murder, it wasn't a complaint. Then I complained about the fact that you didn't deal with it, and then you wouldn't talk about the murder. You just talked about the complaint, and at the end he says, if you're not happy with how we've dealt with this, you're at liberty to take your own legal action. Well, I bloody well know that, sunshine. I don't need you to be telling me, you and all of these other corrupt authorities, Everything has to be channeled back towards them. That's what's wrong with this system, guys. We are our own authority. We've got to stop dealing with these people, tolerating them, engaging with them, voting for them, funding them, and giving them any sort of graces whatsoever. The sooner we all do that and look each other in the eye, those of us who are honest and decent, the sooner this world will change. I'll have to leave it at that for tonight, guys. Bang, bang, bang. Yeah, that was the slide I wanted. See Honest Doctors. And that's the last slide, guys, where you can find us if you're interested. I'll say God bless. Thank you all for listening and paying attention. I will do my best to answer all of the comments over the next couple of hours. God bless everyone. And if I can see how to do this, I will see you next week. Good night.